Welcome back to When Stars Fill Half the Sky, a novel by Pete Caputo. This is Chapter 16, The Sebastian Paradox. Shortly after the Nelsons moved into Area 70, Michael and Julie were married, and he legally adopted Sebastian. On top of all this, they were expecting a child of their own. But there was growing concern about Sebastian's freakish intellect. His vocabulary was outgrowing his 29-month-old infantile mouth at an alarming rate. This was especially disconcerting when he would try to engage his parents and grandparents in adult conversations. At first it was amusing, but the novelty quickly wore off as he began exploring issues and topics no child should even be aware of. Eventually, Sebastian sensed their discomfort, so he limited his experiences and knowledge with his mother and grandparents to a scope of prepubescent topics that helped restore some normalcy. But with Michael, it was different. He knew he could talk openly with him, and they would explore the more deeply profound issues of life and existence. He was reading constantly, not children's books, but works on history, science, politics, and economics. Sebastian had a particular interest in leadership styles and socio-economic models. He also looked forward to his weekly physical screening with the resident doctors, scientists, and staff. They marveled at his intellectual capacity, and likewise, he relished the opportunity to spar technical and philosophical topics with them. But it also became apparent that his physical appearance was changing as well. At first, it was just the look in his eyes. That childlike gaze of awe and wonder was replaced by the gape of awareness and enlightenment. But his blood work revealed hormonal changes, not expected until puberty. His hands and feet were also growing faster than the rest of his body, and he was experiencing great pain and discomfort as a result. The medical team in Area 70 was baffled, unsure of the best treatment for him, so a special team of endocrinologists were flown in to assess his condition, but they were also pretty much at a loss. The best anyone could do was to give him pain relievers, which were obviously a concern to his family. Sebastian was systematically sinking into his own shell of existence, having no one to confide in except for Michael. It was becoming very difficult on Julie and her parents as well. On one level, they did not want to accept that their baby boy was growing up so quickly. But it wasn't their choice, nor was it something they could control. Sebastian's appetite for knowledge was insatiable, and the more time he spent in the half-realm, the more it grew. Having not ventured there herself, Julie tried to dissuade her son from going there. But it was no use. Once a person passed through the portal, there was no way back. Life and reality were no longer limited to one time and one place. But how could he explain this to his mother? And although he could still confide in Michael, Sebastian had a mind of his own. This became an issue when Michael tried to explain to him the importance of managing the length of each journey. Michael had long learned how to stave off the rapid aging process once the changes to his own face and body were becoming apparent. Likewise, he saw what it did to his mother, how just one deep journey basically doubled her biological age. The art of knowing when to return to reality was something Michael mastered, and he wanted to share this wisdom with his son before it was too late. But at this point, Sebastian was struggling to properly pronounce multisyllabic words, so they preferred to converse via the gift they shared from the Morrisell, non-verbal communication. Sebastian was turning into a rebellious teenager, although not yet 3 years old. A gap was forming between Michael and him as well, and every day that distance was widening. One morning, as the family sat for breakfast, Julie and her mother were engrossed in a conversation about her current need for new maternity clothes. Sebastian and Michael were having a nonverbal discussion that quickly got out of hand. You know, I think we should go back to that special garden place together. You remember it, right?
Yeah, of course, but at this point, I see no reason for it, Michael. I rarely go back to any place more than once or twice.
So I guess you're not interested in Disney World anymore either.
That's child's play.
Sebastian, don't forget, you're still only 2 years old. Don't be in such a rush to grow up. You've got the rest of your life to be an adult.
Don't patronize me, Michael, especially you. This is who we are. It drives us to constantly explore new places in different times. It's as if we're being prepared for something. I just don't know what it is yet.
Prepared?
Yes, for something greater than just sitting here day after day in this cage. I want to get out of here. I want to explore the world, to see the places I've traveled to in my mind, to experience it all for real.
Michael was speechless. He had no idea how far advanced the child had progressed in such a short amount of time. He looked at Julie and her mother. They were still engrossed in their debate over the most comfortable stretch fabrics. General Nelson was staring blankly at the morning news broadcast while sipping his black coffee. This would take some time for Michael to explain to them what was going on in the boy's mind.
Actually, I did go to the garden one other time after our visits together. There was a young man there named Lumer. I didn't think too much about it because, well, I was so enthralled by the garden and that beautiful tree in the center field.
The prehistoric.
Yes, the prehistoric. But this guy, Lumer, I was drawn to him. He was being prepared for his rite of passage experience with the tree. Then our eyes met. He just stared at me.
Michael had already witnessed how Sebastian had a special connection to that garden. The people there were able to see him. They would smile at him and were not alarmed or disturbed. It was like he belonged there, not like they were seeing or sensing a ghost, like it would be for any other time traveler. Sebastian, they all acknowledged you in that place. I don't understand it. I've only seen that happen once before.
Yeah, I know, when you met Silta. But after that garden incident, I met Lumer again on a few different occasions and in different times and places. He changed in more than one way. Sometimes he was a male. Other times he'd be in a female body. But every time we met, I knew it was him. He always seemed to be waiting for me. He'd ask me about people and places, kind of how the president asks you about people. I figured it was okay to help him. You were doing it for her. But if I didn't have the right answers he wanted, he'd get really upset with me. Then he'd try and convince me to go out again. I did this for a while. It was kind of fun. I thought I was doing something good, you know, just like you. But the more I did it, the more he wanted. One time, he was so persistent in wanting to know something about Napoleon Bonaparte that he really started to bother me. I told him I had enough and I was leaving. He tried to take hold of me, but, he couldn't. A few times after that, I would look for him just out of curiosity because he seemed to keep showing up in very important moments in history. And he always seemed to be waiting for me, trying new ways to grab me or capture me or just keep me around. But it never worked. Finally, I just stopped looking for him.
So you know about the collective, then? He paused, thinking pensively on how to answer before finally conceding.
The collective? Is that what they call themselves? Well, I guess that makes sense.
Sebi, there's something you need to know about Lumer and the collective. Mike Mistretta of the New World Alliance, he is the present host body for the collective.
I know.
You know?
Why are you so surprised? You know this isn't their first attempt at a clone. I'm actually the third, after Lowry and Cole.
It was disturbing to Michael how calm the boy was. In light of seeing what Mistretta and Lowry had done to his mother, Michael started to lose his composure. Sebastian, you've got to stay away from them.
Don't tell me what to do, Michael. I can handle this.
That was the tipping point. Michael bursted through with his outward voice for all to hear, yelling, "All right, that's enough. I'm telling you right now, these are bad people. Stay away from them!" There was dead silence. Everyone stopped in their tracks and stared at Michael. Then they looked to Sebastian. With impeccable timing, his face winched in displeasure as tears brimmed his eyes and suddenly started to wail like a 2-year-old baby. Julie ran over and lifted him out of his high chair, trying to console her crying son. She shot darts at Michael with her protective motherly stare. Likewise, the Nelsons peered at him in confusion and in defense of their threatened grandchild. He tried to explain, but for the moment, the damage was done. They all walked out of the kitchen together. From the safety of his mother's shoulder, Sebastian peered back at Michael with a sinister grin of satisfaction, realizing he had successfully manipulated his mother and grandparents. The door to Sebastian's bedroom closed behind them as well as their hearts. Julie was notably torn for a while between her young son and her new husband. It was a clear and defining moment, a painful one for Michael, that Sebastian was changing. He was now willing to coerce others in order to get his way. Sebastian was playing with fire and he didn't want anyone to stop him. But for Michael, it was also a sobering lesson. Even though he knew what was best for a loved one, it still was not always enough to stop them from their own demise. Sebastian knew Michael would attempt to explain what had happened, so he continued to engage Lumer and the collective in the half-realm. Then it all came to a halt after the Area 70 security team suspected that one of the endocrinologists flown in to evaluate Sebastian's growth spurts was actually a spy with ties to the NWA. Having taken the oath to protect his country from foreign threats, General Nelson had no choice but to listen to what Michael had to say about Sebastian's behavior. The spy was removed and prosecuted, but not before he was able to deliver classified information about Area 70 to the collective. As a result, all staff members were strictly prohibited from any interaction with the child, except under tightly monitored conditions. Only one objective was now clear for everyone involved: to keep him out of Mistretta's hands at all costs. After some debate about their safest dwelling place, it was decided to keep them in Area 70 under heightened security. Julie was finally forced to face the inconvenient truth about her son's alarming, fast-paced development. Once again, she started to confide in Michael. "Julie, there's a reason why children in the First World were not allowed access to the Marcel until they were of a certain age. Sebi has the knowledge of an adult, but his body and even his mind, well, they just haven't caught up yet." "What's the appropriate age?" "In Tellaria, there's a sacred garden place where children go around the age of 12 or 13 to have a life-changing experience before the prehistoric." "What is that?" "It's the name of the Marcel tree where they meet a higher power." "God?" "Well, yes. But, well, I'm still trying to sort all that out for myself. Anyway, this encounter is where they leave childhood behind and they move into adulthood. It's really an amazing thing to watch. The first time I met Sebi in this place, he was watching this young girl walk away from the tree. He could sense how she was changed." "Did he go before the tree as well?" "He couldn't. The prehistoric would not allow him to go past the cleansing pools, so he would stay there and watch many children being transformed into young adults." "I want to see that place, Michael. I want to see what he saw. I want to know what he knows." This time, the portal for Julie opened instantly. Michael took her hand and they walked together into that strange para-reality. They arrived facing the center of that beautiful garden and the sacred grounds existing millions of years ago on planet Earth. The garden was called Eshasis Singmo, which is translated, the vision of what is to come. He looked at Julie. She was completely enraptured, calm, and perfectly at peace. Before them stood the majestic prehistoric, the earliest iteration of the Tree of Life. It was a sight like no other, strong and majestic. It swayed in the morning breeze with its translucent white branches extending in every direction with asymmetric balance and grace. Its very presence radiated a certain feeling of well-being and inner bliss, and the closer you got to it, the stronger that reassurance was. Tiny, shimmering leaves vibrated with a delightful sound that no ear could ever tire of hearing. Photosynthesis was not their function. Not one of its leaves favored a cadence toward the sun. Unlike other trees, all leaves faced out in every direction equally. Garden dwellers were welcome to pluck them from the branches and apply them as a healing balm for the sick and infirmed. The prehistoric had a life of its own, more than life as we know it on this planet, life on a different level, like the Maricel presently glowing beneath their flesh. Fabulous sprays of multicolored light moved in every direction from the tree. This light would not reflect off of any surface as it touched. Instead, it would vastly be absorbed. There's hundreds of these gardens all over Tellaria, said Michael, still holding her hand. They come to these places to be re-energized and refreshed. It's like a religion for them, like a haven of rest from their daily routines. Julie pointed to the reflective pond with its myriad of small footbridges converging toward the center grounds where the large glowing Maricel tree stood in the center of it all. She found herself fixed on the small fish swimming under one of the bridges. She recalled her son's fascination with them and how they made him laugh. The ticklefish. Yeah, that's what he called them. He just loved to stand in the pool and watch them cover his legs. Julie, this is where I realized how special Sebastian was. Even though he wasn't able to advance past this point, the Tellarians, they were still aware of him. Michael stepped into the pond to explain his point. Not even a ripple answered his intrusion upon the surface of that water. I'm just a fly on the wall here, a ghost. They can't see me. I can't interact with them. But Sebastian was different. They'd smile at him and he would smile back. And the fish, they would come to him and kiss away at his legs and feet. They prepare an individual to stare barefoot before the prehistoric. How is this possible that they can see him? I don't know. In all of my travels, I've only seen one person who can do this. Julie slipped off her shoes and joined Michael in the pond. Unsurprisingly, the waters did not move. The fish did not come to kiss her bare legs. She smiled nonetheless. Then, Julie focused on a figure nearby. That boy over there. I know his name. His name is Lumer. She pointed to him as he stood to their left, only meters away. He was about to face the prehistoric for the first time. But just before he advanced, the Maricel transported Michael and Julie a few weeks back in time to view what led up to that present moment. Instantly, they were aware of his story, who he was, and how Lumer became the father of the collective. The half-realm journey for Michael and Julie continues in the next chapter, with them learning about the boy Lumer, where he came from, and the events leading up to his life-changing experience in the sacred garden.